that one about being curious and being, open-minded and asking questions to people is really important to me. Just you kind of, in my personal relationships, but also like, with my major, it kind of relates a lot to, tense political discussions or things like that. And, I never want to, be the person that, is not allowing somebody else to speak, or, where somebody does not feel comfortable, telling me what they think or telling me, an opinion that they have. So that's really important to me. It's just maintaining that open-mindedness and curiosity no matter what. And like I said, putting down your fist, like I said before.
Hello, and welcome to Listening for Purpose, Our Campus, Our Stories. I'm your host, Simeon Klepak, and this season of the show, we're talking to people at Valpo about what inspires them and how they discern purpose in their lives. Today, my guest is Aidan Obermueller. He's a Christ College scholar, a senior econ major, a CAPS fellow, and he's involved in Phi-Psi as well. And on today's episode, we tackle the hit TV show Ted Lasso and discuss the ways that its themes of curiosity and positive masculinity can be really useful for us to think about as we seek to build up ourselves and each other. Join us. Hello, and welcome to the Listening for Purpose podcast, Our Campus, Our Stories. I'm your host, Simeon Klepak, and this season we're talking to people at Valpo about what inspires them and how they discern purpose in their lives. Today, my guest is Aidan Obermueller, econ and Spanish double major.
That's
very
correct,
exciting. Yeah. And also a math minor, because, just for fun. And he's also involved in Phi-Psi, is that right?
That's correct, yeah.
When did you start with Phi-Psi?
I joined when I was a freshman, so that would have been spring of 2022.
All right. And then what's your leadership position?
Right now I'm a new member educator.
Okay.
I was on the executive board my sophomore and junior year.
So also, the new member educator, what's in wrapped up in all that?
So you're kind of run the education program for the new people that join each semester. So actually bid day is in a couple of days here, I think. So they'll join, and then they have, I run sessions with them, kind of what it means to be a part of the chapter and that kind of stuff. So
right.
Yeah.
That's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's not, some of it's more rigorous than other parts, but
yeah,
it's good.
Do you guys have what was the biggest? Is that new to this semester, or did you do that last year?
We always have it. Look, we always have a.
But is this your first time doing it?
Oh yeah, it's my first time doing it. Yeah.
Do you guys have a lot of people you're looking at, or does it just depend on bid day?
For the fall, usually it's less people. So for the spring, because you're looking at a whole new, first year class. So in the spring, in the spring, you're looking at a whole new first year class, and then the fall, it's a little bit less always, but yeah, nice. So a few guys though.
Yeah. Good deal. I do have an important question for you.
Yeah.
Your shirt has got a very nice. You guys can't see it on YouTube, but it's got a very nice pineapple, and the pineapple has some Christmas lights and a little Christmas hat on top.
Yeah, that is true.
So what's the story behind that shirt? What's that?
I wish there was more of a story behind it. A friend gave it to me. Yeah, it was his shirt, and then he outgrew it, so
that's awesome.
He gave it to me, so now it's mine.
I think it works. You don't usually think of pineapples.
I liked it. Yeah, I liked the. Yeah, it's actually like a golf shirt. Actually, I think technically, but it works. It's just because it's a golf brand, but yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, pineapples are a symbol of hospitality. So pineapples, holidays, it works together.
Yeah. Yep.
Awesome. So let's get into the meat of our conversation today. So on this season of the show, every guest I have on, I'm asking them about something that inspires them. And I'm getting ahead of myself. No, I forgot to read this. Okay. I give you a surface level introduction.
Sure.
We can cut that out in post.
Yeah, I was going to say.
So I'd love for you to tell the listeners a bit about yourself. So specifically, where are you at in life? How did you get here, and where are you going? And you can take that in terms of career, relationships, physical, mental, spiritual, whatever's important to you. So what should people know about you?
So I'm from And if we're talking geographically, I'm from Dubuque, Iowa, which is about 4.5 hour drive west of here. Right as you get into Iowa, it's right on the border there. So obviously I'm in Valpo. Not sure where I'm going geographically, but I think if you're taking this question, more spiritually or, personally, what was it again? Where did that come from? Where am I at? And then where am I going?
Yeah.
Is that what it is? Yeah. That's hard for me to kind of describe where did that come from. I think, I'm a product of my parents. So, my parents are, really valued. My mom's a professor. My dad's a music teacher and artist. So really valued the arts. Really valued education, critical thinking, that kind of stuff. So, I actually have great parents that, push those values on me, that's kind of where I come from.
Yeah.
Really like to value those things. And where I'm at, right now I'm just learning and kind of, growing into who I am kind of every day. Still haven't really gotten there, but that's where I'm at. It's sort of a process, and where I'm going. I think I'd like to go somewhere where I can use my gifts to help other people. So that's what I would say, wherever that is.
Yeah. And I mean, you're a senior this year,
Yeah.
so those are kind of the where you're going is probably
that's the one I'm thinking about
it's
every day.
It's a little more prominent than normal,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so this season of the show, now to get into the meat of it, well, we're diving into the things that inspire us. So
Sure.
Each week our guests bring on something to discuss that has shaped the way they think about purpose and vocation and calling. So be that story, piece of art, essay, music, or maybe just a really good podcast. So, Aidan, what have you brought us to talk about today?
So I picked the show Ted Lasso, if anybody knows that show. It was a hard choice. There was a lot of different things I could have picked. You mentioned books and essays and stuff, but Ted Lasso was something I watched the last few years that's definitely kind of, I would say, inspired how I, look at my life and kind of how I want to live it. So
That's awesome.
I know you've seen some of it, but or all of it, I don't know.
So I watched I started it because the second season was coming out during our freshman year.
That's
so
right.
in fall, that was in spring of 22, I think.
Something like that. Freshman year, yeah.
So my roommate was watching the second season, and then I was like trying to catch up so I could watch the second season, and I made it, and I caught up by the time the second season finale came out. So
nice.
That was pretty cool to get to watch that with them.
Yeah.
But so did you watch it then, or were you?
I watched everything,
since season 1, or
all the way through, and then I think the last and final season was like a year ago came out.
Yeah,
so
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I have not yet seen the third one. I did a quick Wikipedia scroll before we hopped on here.
Yeah.
So we'll be, for the people at home, definitely check it out yourselves, and we will maybe try to stay away from too dramatic spoilers, but we're here to talk about the show, and we're more focused on characters or whatever. So
yeah, sure.
So we'll but if there's a particular plot moment or whatever, we're here to talk about whatever stands out to you.
Sure.
So someone's listening and they're like, what is Aidan talking about? I've never heard of this Ted Lasso show.
Yeah.
What is this thing?
Yeah.
Could you give an overview of what is Ted Lasso for people that aren't familiar?
Yeah, so it was based on a skit. Initially, it was just a little a skit or something that NBC or something put out of this American college football coach that goes across the pond to England to coach a soccer team there and what that would be like. So it was just a skit, funny idea. And they turned it into a show and developed a character around this guy. So the premise is really funny, but you kind of realize that it's sort of he's actually a really good coach and an even better person and sort of changes the lives of everybody around him in a really positive way, and goes through his own development. And it's honestly a great show just about how to have a positive effect on others, how to maintain relationships really well, how to build relationships really well. So those are some of the aspects generally. I don't know what your other questions are about it, but
Yeah.
That's how I would pitch it to somebody.
Yeah, and I think that's great. I know for me, like I feel like there's so much cynicism in the world today, and
Yeah, I
people
would agree with
like
that.
a lot of like, like despair or just people being very negative.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not to like downplay like the bad things that are happening, but like I think what Ted Lasso does really well is like say like yeah things are hard and it's still worth bringing joy into the world in spite of that. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, and you can control, how it's just within your own life and your own circle of people, how you treat them, and even if there are, yeah, as you said, bad things happening in the world or things to be concerned about, you can still have a positive effect on your circle, of influence. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
So whole show, 3 seasons, ton of characters.
yeah, yeah.
Could you just give us a quick overview of like who our main characters are?
Yeah, yeah, I can. Yeah, so obviously Ted, he's from Kansas, I think, so he speaks with kind of a.
So no wonder you like
It's
him.
not a Southern drawl, but it's kind of an accent,
Yeah,
Midwestern
yeah.
accent.
Mm-hmm.
Very positive, sort of upbeat. Kind of, he has a lot of quips and stuff, a lot of sayings. That's kind of the humor of the show. It's
No
very
no
funny
wonder you
show.
like a Midwest pride, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. His sidekick his name is Coach Beard, and he's actually knows more about soccer. It's a soccer team that he's coaching, and Ted knows nothing about soccer because he's a college football coach. But the assistant coach actually does know some stuff. He's really quiet guy, kind of one-liners, but really quiet, keeps to himself. And then there's Nate, who initially starts out as the kit man. He's sort of the guy that folds the jerseys and does the laundry and stuff. And it ends up he knows the most, soccer out of them all. And Ted actually ends up kind of becoming a coach. That's something that happens early on, so that's not like a huge spoiler. And then there's a whole host of players. You have Jamie Tardy, sort of the cocky, cocky player. He's the star player, but he's super cocky, super full of himself. Mm-hmm. Roy Kent's the older guy on the team. He was really good. Now he's sort of past his prime. He's the guy that the show is. I think it has a mature rating just because of how many times he swears.
Yes. Yeah. Not language for the podcast.
No,
but it's
I cannot repeat anything that character says. Yeah.
Yes, it's punctuated.
Sure.
It
yeah.
Punctuates his language.
Yeah. Who else? There's. I would say the owner is a really big character. The owner of the team is named Rebecca, and she initially makes Ted the coach of her team because the team used to be owned by her husband, mm-hmm. who she hates and is now divorced from. So she's sort of trying to sabotage. It starts as a
revenge.
It's almost like she hires Ted as a joke, and then obviously then the rest of the show happens. So it's obviously in the end not a joke, but initially not a serious hire. It's meant to sabotage her husband's team who she hates, and then who else? And then there's Keely, who's mm-hmm. initially starts out as Jamie's girlfriend, and she's kind of a business influencer person, and she kind of her character develops. I don't want to say too much, but
she's a really cool story.
But she's a good character too, and I enjoy her. So
that's awesome.
And then there's other funny players that you get to know, but those are the main ones I would say.
Yeah. No, yeah, I agree. I mean that about covers it. It's a very, very dynamic cast with like a lot of different personalities.
Yeah, I agree.
It's pretty good. Yeah. So, what would you say like for the show overall? What was like your biggest takeaway or like moment that like really resonated with you?
Yeah, gosh, I was actually looking at some scenes because I hadn't seen the show in a couple of years. It's been, or a year at least, since I finished it. But, there's one scene where I think one of the best messages from the show is positive masculinity, because mm-hmm. it's sort of the show's taking place in a sports locker room full of, male soccer players, and it's just like, it's this whole locker room vibe, and that can be really negative or really positive experience for the players. So it's when Jamie is who is the cocky player, like I said, the guy you kind of think is full of himself. He's kind mm-hmm. of unlikable. they lose a game, I think, and his dad comes in to the locker room, like he gets past security, comes into the locker room, and is sort of like berating Jamie. He's, totally being,
right.
he's just a jerk to him, and just is like, and you see Jamie, who's usually really like, full of himself and very like, puffing his chest. He looks like totally like a deer in headlights. He doesn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And he ends up punching his dad in the face in front of the whole, and it's like this just really it's just really kind of hard to watch, like, and he just looks they take his dad away, and the room is cleared out, but then you see the older player Roy, who hates Jamie, usually come up and he gives him a hug, and it's sort of like, that's one of the best moments in the show for me, where you have this, this embrace and kind of vulnerability and you kind of also see that people have, people are deeper than you really think a lot of times. So,
yeah. I mean, no, when I was watching that show, like that moment, like that hit, I was like, oh my gosh.
I think that's in the first two, seasons. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause they really play up the tension between Jamie and Roy, and how like Jamie thinks like Roy is too stiff or whatever, and Roy thinks Jamie is immature.
Yep.
And they work together, but they don't really respect each other, and they have this like, and it's so much fun to watch because it's hilarious. But I love that moment because like you have this place of like deep like vulnerability where Jamie's like his pain is kind of like there for everyone to see, which like traditionally like that's not something guys are supposed to do. Like that's, you keep that in your backstory or whatever, you keep that in the back burner, but it's there for everyone. And then in that moment, like Roy steps up, and he's like, we're here for you, we're supporting you.
Exactly. Exactly. That whole thing of, Jamie was just had a very vulnerable moment, and then the team, Roy, who's, his, could be so easy for Roy there just to not do anything because he hates him, but he doesn't do that. So, that's a big moment for me. I like that one.
Yeah. We're just kind of sitting between like inaction and like empathy, and he chooses to take the step. Even though he doesn't necessarily like this guy, he's like, there's still the need there.
That's a great one. I think the show also talks about, but one of the messages is just being curious and being open to people, and that's one of the best qualities of Ted in the show. So there's also a scene where he wants to go, or he's in a bar, and the husband, he's with the owner Rebecca, and her husband comes
Rupert.
in. Her husband Rupert. Yeah, I should have said his. Yeah, Rupert is his name. Comes in. He's got this new, he's remarried to this younger woman, and it's sort of, you're obviously supposed to not like Rupert, and he's totally just a jerk and all this stuff. But Ted just goes up and he's, nice to, obviously Rebecca does not like her, but her ex-husband, but Ted goes up and is very, puts that aside and is just talking to him, and where are you from, and very curious, just very open, very curious. He puts down his fists, and Rupert, is totally smug and all this stuff, and it ends up the conversation develops into them they're gonna play a game of darts against each other, and I think it's either if Ted loses, Ted has to quit being coach, or something.
Yeah.
Or it's just these massive stakes, and I think if Rupert loses, he has to like. There's something where he has to sell one of his teams or something, or sell.
Yeah, or like he's interfering with Richmond still or something.
I think he's interfering in some financial way with Richmond, so he has to. And so the stakes are pretty high for Ted, though. Ends up that, Rupert's like, I'm really good at darts, like you shouldn't have done this. And they start playing, and it turns out Ted is literally like, an amazing darts player.
The king.
And I saw this thing, and I read this kind of, somebody's reaction to it, and they were like, if Rupert was just curious as Ted, he would have talked. If he had actually just asked Ted all the same questions that Ted was asking him, he would have found out that Ted played darts back in Kansas, but he didn't care to know anything about Ted, and Ted ends up surprising him with the fact that he's really good at darts. So
Yeah.
But basically Ted figured out that Rupert liked to play darts by just asking him questions about himself. So I think it's a funny moment, and it's like kind of cool, but it's also like, Ted's being actually a really good person here too. So
Right.
yeah.
That's where he like says that Walt Whitman quote, like, be curious, not judgmental.
I think he says that. Yeah, you're right.
Which is kind of like,
I kind of forgot. Yeah, I forgot.
That comes up again and again in the show.
Yeah.
It's like, are you going to judge people and make decisions assuming they're out to get you? Or are you going to be curious and have an open heart to him? Yeah.
Yeah, no, and that's why I like that show too. So I like the messages it puts forth, and there's some other good stuff in there too about the influence of parents, and there's a lot of child to parent relationships in that movie too, and I think about my own parents, so that's also interesting. Jamie and his dad, you think about, and ends up that Ted's dad and his mom have a huge role in who he is as a person, and then obviously Ted's own relationship with his son too, so it's a big part of that show.
Yeah.
But it kind of explores that, which I really like too,
yeah.
So.
Yeah, because you've seen that in your own life, like the values that were important to your parents, like a lot of those have gotten like passed on to you.
Yeah, and even just the experiences of your parents too, Yeah. In some way, so you see that it takes place in different ways in that show. You realize, he's like that because of his, dad or his mom.
Yeah.
Yeah, with whoever you want to pick in the show, but yeah, it's interesting.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So we're gonna take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Are you looking for something meaningful and inspiring to do next summer? The Calling and Purpose in Society CAPS Fellows program is professionally relevant, socially engaged, and rooted in reflection. It's more than just a summer internship. The CAPS program provides students with the opportunity to address some of society's most challenging and complex issues through nonprofit work, both on the local and national level. They engage in environmental conservation, refugee resettlement, education and literacy, the role of the arts and humanities, social services, disaster relief, and human flourishing. Sophomores, juniors, and seniors are encouraged to apply. The application is open to all majors and colleges. The CAPS Fellows application will open November 13th, and there will be an info session the following day, Thursday, November 14th at 7 p.m. in the Helge Center multipurpose room for you to get tips on the application, including the resume and personal statement, as well as interview tips that will help you beyond your CAPS Fellows program. For more information, reach out to the Institute for Leadership and Service at lead.serve@valpo.edu.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Talking here with Aidan, and we're going to get into some more personal stuff. So, I'm curious, how did Ted Lasso kind of maybe shape some of the way you thought, or maybe change the way you thought about, purpose in your life?
That's a good question. I didn't even think of it like as something that would, as I was watching it, I wasn't thinking of it as like, this is changing my, the way I'm looking at my purpose in life. But I think a lot of the, those messages that I like about that are things that, I want to live my life by. So, that one about being curious and being, open-minded and asking questions to people is really important to me. Just kind of, in my personal relationships, but also like, with my major, it kind of relates a lot to, tense political discussions or things like that. And, I never want to, be the person that, is not allowing somebody else to speak, or, where somebody does not feel comfortable, telling me what they think or telling me, an opinion that they have. So, that's really important to me. It's just maintaining that open-mindedness and curiosity, no matter what. And like I said, putting down your fist, like I said before. Yeah. So, that's one way.
can you think of any like conversations you've had or interactions where like you've kind of like you've chosen to be curious and then that's like kind of led somewhere? And if you don't, that's fine. But I'm curious if you.
Yeah, let me think for a second. You know, I go back to just like political discussions. Like there was a debate the other night, and
Right.
yeah, it's just I was messaging and talking with some of my friends about it, and I just you know, I just sort of wanted to understand how everybody was watching it, you know, what they were thinking. So I was just sort of asking questions like, oh, like, you know, what do you think about this? Or, you know, do you think, do you think Vice President Harris is good at, you know, this or X or Y, or do you think she's not so good at it? And just seeing like, you know, how it, because, you know, everybody has a different, like I said, everybody, you know, is influenced by their parents. Everybody's influenced by,
Right.
you know, by their, you know, experience, and it's completely different how they're going to look at something. So,
Right.
And not trying to end a conversation before it starts by just, you know, telling them what I think is right. And that's the end of the talk. So,
Right. Well,
yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Like people deserve to be like respected on their own terms, you know,
Yeah.
not just on
As
like,
a person. Yeah.
right. Like, yeah, like I'm a person, I can have my own ideas, and like it's if you just like shut them down
Yeah.
before they can like explain themselves, like that, like it's very unfair.
Yeah. It's really hard. And it's so easy it's gotten a lot more common to do that with,
Absolutely.
you know, social media and it's a little bit, yeah, it's easier to do that too. So
Yeah.
now, but because you can hide behind a phone, but yeah, it's important to be open, you know, and it's hard. It's
Right.
really hard to do it, but yeah, I try to. So, and as far as my purpose goes, that's just kind of something I want to carry, like, you know, carry forward into my, you know, my career and my, you know, my life too. So, you know, whatever I go into.
Yeah, like even though you don't necessarily know like where you're ending up after college, it's going to be something within that role you want to bring.
Yeah.
That curiosity and openness.
I mean, I can be more. I mean, I want to go for a master's in public policy,
Okay,
so it'll be something
cool.
in the field of public policy. So that's why I brought up, you know, the debate and stuff. You know, because I always watch that stuff just as somebody that's trying to, you know, learn things and apply them to the real world. But
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of the field I want to go into. So
Awesome.
yeah, I do have an idea of where I want to go.
And I mean, curiosity is going to be so important for that.
Yeah, it really is. Because you're not going to, in that field especially, you're not going to agree with everybody, and it's going to be different ideas put forth of how to, you know, make the world a better place. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because I'm interested, you shared about how the portrayal of like positive masculinity stood out to you.
Yeah,
in Ted Lasso.
And
like given like you're involved in Phi Psi, like there's a lot of like it's a like very like male organization, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's like
it's a fraternity. Yeah,
right. It's a fraternity. You literally call each other.
That's what it is. Yeah,
you're brothers, you know.
Yeah,
and
it's very masculine type of environment. Yeah.
So like I'm curious whether like that like I'm curious like how have your values around like masculinity like impacted like your involvement in Phi Psi, like your role like trying to like impact the culture there?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. That how has it impacted what I'm trying to do there? I think one of the things I thought about before joining was, you know, at their worst, fraternities are sort of what you see, you know, in the headlines with, you know, lots of this just terrible stuff with hazing and all sorts of, you know, other just terrible things. But at their best, fraternities can be a really safe, you know, space for men to kind of, you know, support each other, build each other up. You know, a lot of that like you said, positive masculinity. So I would say I've gotten a lot of that actually, which is why I'm really glad I decided to, you know, become a part of it and take on roles in there. So I think, you know, when I take on a leadership position or, you know, decide to, you know, try and help the chapter in some intentional way, like, I think in the back of my head, a lot of times I am, you know, doing it for that reason, because I think it's, like, our chapter, like the goal of the chapter is to kind of, build people up and make them better versions of themselves, make, each guy a better man. So, I think that's what that term positive masculinity would mean to me, is, just making, each person better version of themselves. So.
Yeah, it's not about like putting yourself putting yourself above others, but like leaning into the community and like the support to like help lift everyone up.
Yeah,
together.
Exactly. Yeah, it's very so I think when it becomes not about being because guys a lot of times can be really putting each other down and trying to kind of assert their dominance over other guys in the room, and that's just that's what I was hoping it was not going to be, and that's what I'm trying to create the culture where it's never that. So and it's I would say it's not, so which is a really great thing.
That's awesome. Yeah, good deal.
Yeah.
So in terms of like you see yourself going out and doing public policy,
sure,
bring in this like attitude of like positivity and openness and like supporting other people into that work. Do you think that like when you think about purpose, is that something that you perceive as like being kind of settled, or is that something that you continue to explore?
Always continue to explore. I think I don't know if it'll ever be settled really, but I think always continue to explore, because even in a time period as short as 3 years from when I was a first year student here to now, there's just somebody once told me like you just can't ever know like the situation you're going to find yourself in, or there's so many more people that you don't know yet that you will meet, like always. So and that sort of that combination of new situations and new people can always influence your purpose. So and what you think that is. So this is that's what I've been saying today is kind of where I'm at now, but and I think a lot of that will always remain, but I think there could be more to add to that as I have new experiences. It won't be like all of a sudden I decided I want to be negative.
Right. It's like,
but instead of trying to be positive, but
it's not like a either or.
Yeah.
It's like just an addition.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Exactly right. Yeah. But I don't think it's ever settled. I think I don't know what other people would say to that, but yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. What people or communities have been important to you as you've discerned purpose in your life?
Recently the Valpo community has been really important in the last 3 years, but I think but other than that, I studied abroad in Costa Rica last semester, so the community of people, my host family, the different friends I met there, experiences I had, I would include people I met even once or twice as part of that community. Like definitely, what was the wording of your question again? It was
what people or communities have been constructive in like your discernment of purpose.
Yes, I think they just that whole experience, which to me I equate that experience with a lot in large part with the people I met there. They were totally constructive in how I see my purpose. I learned a lot about like being I didn't know any of them beforehand, so I learned a lot about how I am. In some ways I did that when I came to college, which is going to a new place by yourself, but I did it again with that study abroad experience. So they showed me a lot about how I am going into a new environment where I don't know anybody, and what kinds of things am I good at, what are my good qualities, what are the qualities maybe I need to work on, and the kind of I wasn't focused on the Valpo academic life as much, still somewhat, but yeah, a lot more on that personal development side. So that was really important. Obviously, my family, my actual family in the U.S. was very important. Especially my mom, and and my brother as well. So yeah, it was super important.
So like in terms of, like you said, like Valpo, and then also like Costa Rica to maybe a bigger degree.
Yeah.
For the podcast listeners, there's a very cool squirrel outside. Yeah. He's just scampering away. But so Valpo and then Costa Rica is like, it sounds like it was a place where you were kind of in a new place and you didn't necessarily have the same supports you'd had before.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden you had to like figure out like yourself and your own like place and direction, like because you didn't have this support you necessarily had before. Is that right?
That would be very accurate. I would say that process of trying to find where you want to go, in that situation is sort of what develops you, and what I think a lot of people have had that experience of trying, not having the same support systems and having to sort of do it on your own, but then that ends up making you building you as a person, creating more of who you are. So I agree with that.
Was there anything you learned about yourself that like a year later you were like, oh wait, whoa, this is like this is just kind of like an aha, or like oh my gosh, like this is this is making my life so much better now that I have this like self-understanding?
Yeah, you're talking about abroad?
Either one, yeah. About? But if there's one abroad, feel free to share that. Yeah,
gosh. I would say one thing abroad I learned that I'm pretty good at, like I'm actually okay like traveling alone, like I don't actually, like I love my friends, and like that's very important to me, but like that experience was actually okay for me to do on my own, and that was actually okay. And that made me realize like a lot of like I can be confident in myself, just from myself, and not be depending on other people to give me like confidence, or to give me give me that any of that stuff. So that's actually what I learned about my that's, like you said, self-understanding, like in Costa Rica. I mean, here I learned a lot of other things about myself at Valpo, like about what are my strengths as a leader, doing leadership positions. I learned about how to create relationships, how to talk to people. I was kind of more shy in high school. That wasn't as good at communicating with people. So all of that, those different kinds of soft skills I learned at Valpo for sure. And that's
I mean, and that's really like, that's one of the best things we have at Valpo. I feel like it's just like so many opportunities to like develop that, because like really like all the knowledge and stuff is nice, but like whatever job you're getting into, like
half of it
you can learn skills, but like the soft skills, that like communication, taking initiative, like that's the stuff that like you need to have a habit of. You know?
And I totally agree. And a large part of it is just that. Valpo does great. Has done. I did not know that would be part of my undergrad experience here, but when I was a first year student, but it's been probably one of the biggest parts of it. So,
is it? Would you say it's mostly? Would you say that like those opportunities you've taken to develop those soft skills, does that mostly come from like academic stuff, or FSL, or other groups?
Yeah, combination FSL, Christ College has done that for sure. Academics, and then I would say that and then I would say study abroad. I think study abroad, I think of it as a separate thing, but it's also part of my Valpo experience, because Valpo is sort of is the one that allowed me to do that. So, and obviously I developed different kinds of skills there. So.
Right. Yeah, I thought it was interesting what you said about like kind of the independency and self-sufficiency, but the like if I heard you right, where you were saying it was even more specific than just being like going into the world confidently, and that confidence coming not from like the validation you get from others, but just through like I am myself and kind of that self-knowledge.
Yeah, I would say being, owning yourself and and you're like being confident that you have gifts to share, and just not apologizing for that. And not that you don't want to be trying to improve yourself or try and like, you have to have a balance obviously, but
right.
You're the core gifts that make up who you are. Just don't apologize for those and own it, like you said. So yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah,
I think that's a really cool form of, I guess, self-knowledge that impacts the way that you express yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah,
that's gorgeous. Good deal. So, as we wrap up, could you share just like what's one idea or way that you would encourage people at the Valpo community to maybe challenge the way that they think about purpose and calling? So people are in one place. What's one little thing that you'd give them just to like push them to grow, think different, something?
I like one little thing. Yeah. I think when whatever you do, like whatever it is that you're doing, or whatever career path you're looking at, or organizations that you're involved in, just ask yourself why. Like, whatever you think your purpose is now, like ask yourself why. Like, that's what I was trying to do. Like, why are you doing? Why did you choose to do this or choose to do that? Is that really? Are you pushing yourself towards your purpose? I think just stepping back and asking that question can really help you gain clarity if you're sort of not sure where you're at or what you want to do, what are the next things you're doing. So that can kind of help give you direction if you ask yourself why for a lot of those questions. And it's not to just like second guess whatever you're doing just for the heck of it, but that can be helpful. So if you need to looking for some clarity in what your purpose is, or and I don't pretend to know what mine is, but I try and ask myself why, and see if that can help me get closer to it. So yeah.
I mean, you just keep asking, and then even though you might not necessarily arrive at an answer, you're gonna know more about yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
That's gonna help guide you.
Yeah, that's a yes, absolutely. Yeah,
that's great. Well, Aidan, thanks so much for being on the show. It was great to like hear about like your purpose and what inspires you, and just like the way that like challenging yourself to like step into new places can like
absolutely.
give you some of that insight into yourself, so that you can, by knowing yourself, then you can give to more other people and help bring others into that space where they can grow as well. So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. This has been Listening for Purpose, Our Campus, Our Stories, a production of the Institute for Leadership and Service at Valparaiso University. This episode was recorded and edited by me, Simeon Klepak, with the help from Kat Peters and Gabby Unziker. For a video version of the podcast, check out the Institute for Leadership and Service YouTube channel. For information about the Institute for Leadership and Service, the CAPS Fellows Program, or the Allen Scholars Program, check out our website at valpo.edu/ILAS, or email us at lead.serve@valpo.edu. If you enjoyed this episode, send it to a friend. This show's for us, for our campus, seeking to uplift our stories and journeys. Thank you for joining me this week, and I'll see you next time.